Welcome to the Grab a Hole podcast. I am your host, Justin S., and I am back in the pool house alongside not two, but one of my co hosts. And it's not who you expect, it's actually David. It is David and I tonight, and we are doing our Money in the Bank predictions. It's been a minute. How you been? How's it going? Are you ready for Money in the Bank?
Oh man, it's been a hectic few weeks personally and professionally, but school year's finally winding down, and yeah, I'm ready to relax and watch some Money in the Bank this weekend.
There we go. Now we're talking. We got four matches listed on the card currently. We expect a fifth to be added, hopefully this Friday, as they did at Saturday night's main event. I would find it hard pressed, even with two ladder matches, that they only do four matches for the card. So we'll have to see if they add that fifth one on SmackDown. We're gonna start with recaps of SmackDown and Raw like we normally do, and then we'll get to our predictions as far as what happened. But before we get to that, I want to say make sure that you hit the subscribe button on YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube. If you're watching us on Spotify or listening on Spotify, please make sure that you hit the plus sign or the heart or the bell, whatever it is, to make sure that you get these as long and as quickly and as long as they are at times. We want to make sure that you get them as soon as they drop so you can listen to them if you need to break them up. You want to listen to them while you're at work, whatever it is, to make sure that you get them on time. Also, if you're listening to us on Audible or Amazon Music, thank you. Make sure that you hit the heart, the bell, the like, whatever it is for that, to make sure that you get these as soon as they drop. Also, something I want to remind people of, we do have a comment section on both Spotify and YouTube. So if there's something that you hear that you want to talk about, want us to talk about, or a comment that you have about something that we said, please feel free to leave it in there. If we feel like something on there is something we can talk about or debate about, put it in there. We'll make sure that we bring it up and we'll shout you out on the show. So now that that's out of the way,
For the last time, I'm not selling my feet pics.
well, hey, if there's money involved, name your price. As the $1 Million Man once said, everybody's got a price, right? Before we get to the actual in-ring stuff, let's talk about something that kind of shocked everybody this week. And that was the release of R-Truth and Carlito. R-Truth, we just saw do his program or angle with John Cena and how that led to Saturday night's main event. We saw Carlito involved in the Judgment Day. Although he wasn't doing a whole lot of in-ring work, he was a regular on Netflix every week on Raw with the Judgment Day and the things that they were doing in the comic relief role. Who, I mean, I think that all of us kind of unanimously felt that he was killing it in that job. That he didn't have to be extra or be tough or whatever. The comedy role was a great fit for him. And both of those guys are now gone. Was it a shock to you to see R-Truth gone? And was it as a surprise to you as somebody who's more of a casual fan to see the kind of love he got once the news went public?
It was a shock because of how they used him. Like, you just had him wrestle John Cena, Saturday night, and then even on SmackDown, he has that match with JC Mateo,
Right.
and still has a segment, and then all of a sudden, it's pretty unceremoniously like. I know he's not like instantly cut if they're just letting his contract run out or
Right.
whatever, but yeah, like I've seen a lot of the backlash too from like the locker room and stuff like that.
Yep.
Where I mean, TKO is sending a very clear message that it's about the dollars and cents. And the other thing is apparently they don't like comedy because they cut like the two funniest guys on each roster right now.
Right. No lie. Um, with Truth, like you said, he has the run in with JC Mateo and Fatu and Solo on SmackDown, and which led to that match. But I read recently in the last day and a half that they actually offered him a new deal, but it was a significant pay cut, and he just wasn't in that space to say yes to that. Um, to you, as a casual fan, does it bother you like it does somebody like me as a hardcore fan to see what TKO is doing about making things about dollars? We've talked about, you, me, and Damien have all talked about pricing people out of WrestleMania. Now, SummerSlam's coming up as a 2-day event. That they're probably going to price people out of that one eventually. And it is very much a deal now that we've seen them pull out of the New Orleans announcement of WrestleMania to go to a bigger venue of, as far as money goes and a bigger impact in an area, which was hilarious because New Orleans hosted the Super Bowl and had a $500 million economic impact in that situation, and WWE was like, well, the check's not big enough. Or TKO was the check's not big enough. Does it bother you as a casual fan like it does the hardcore fans to see them continue to make it about money and about things other than the fans and putting on the best show that they can creatively?
Yeah, I mean, while I'm currently more of a casual fan, I still grew up with the WWF and the WWE, and the respect to a lot of those men and women that came before, and like WWE for a long time treated those guys differently. Like I think they saw value in what a guy like Truth was in the locker room and Carlito and things like that, and that you're not seeing right now. Like it's becoming a very sanitized financially. It's like too corporate. And this is the downside of when you have a company take over your business as opposed to one guy running it who, for all his faults, McMahon, like, he loved wrestling and, like, wouldn't sell his soul in some aspects for, an advertisement and stuff like that. Because I know in the past he turned down ring advertisements because that was sacred to him and things like that. So like I was still a fan growing up, and that's like where I go. And we've talked about this before, how ridiculous it is that now you've got wrestlers dressing in gimmicks to promote like a freaking phone video game or anything like that. It just takes away from like what we're there for. It's like I don't want to watch a 3-hour commercial.
Absolutely.
I'm there, and like what I see happening is losing that casual fan and the hardcore fan. Like you're gonna get, they might have high viewer rates, but they're not gonna get people that are gonna watch consistently over time. Like I'll admit, with the last few weeks being crazy, I haven't watched as much, and I also feel like I can go on and get cliff notes because there's a 2.5 hour show, but only 15 minutes of actual time matter.
Right.
Because
That's what I was going to say. Like, you can catch highlights and then get a shorthand from me and Damien and be like, all right, I'm up to speed. Like, I didn't miss much.
yeah, exactly.
And not only that, like, from a creative standpoint, do you feel like that if they were raising prices and you turn back the clock to WrestleMania 40, right? Like in the build of the 2 year build, right? 39 to 40, and what they did in that time frame of building up Roman, building up Cody in that moment, and the craziness. Damien called it a once in a generation storyline, so to speak, of its of epic proportions. But with the idea in mind that if they were raising prices with that kind of creative at the time, do you feel like it would be as much of an issue, or do you feel like, well, people would be like, I understand the product's hot, they're hitting on all cylinders. This makes a lot of sense that they're trying to strike while the iron's hot. And that now that we're looking at what 2025 has been, and it's been, for lack of a better phrase, it's been a shit show creatively. We're seeing a lot of carbon copies between Raw and SmackDown of formulas that we've seen time and time again. We're seeing problems with, Roman's not there. Cody got extended time off. You're doing these things where the guys that were supposed to be your literal cornerstones, franchise guys, are part time in Roman and Cody. They make him go away, but they kind of fumbled Jay's big moment with Gunther so in the way that it hit, and you're not doing any. He's involved in a tag match on this show and not defending the title until the Monday after.
That's
So
the
you're
same thing they
softening.
did with Cody, though. Remember, we talked about this last year. Like Cody was a champion, and they were relegating him to tag roles and like other storylines that weren't advancing the title at all. And then we talked about how underwhelming his title reign was because of stuff like that.
Right. So because of that, do you feel like it would be less of a burden and less irritating to fans like us that if they were doing that in some solid or regularly well done creative versus what we've been seeing? Because a lot of people are swearing by like, this Cena thing is good, you just got to kind of let go of some of the other things. It hasn't been good. It's not gonna get better. There's a rumor I read today that they don't plan on him and AJ doing a nostalgic match because they're afraid that they're gonna have a good match that people would like, and that doesn't fit the Cena story at this particular point. And that's piss poor to do to somebody on the way out, and that's a disservice to the fans who are paying their money to see him as he finishes up this last year with the company. Do you feel like that same thing, that with that the lack of creative, that the price is jacking, the less live events, and the way that they're making it about the dollar is a lot harsher because of that? Or do you feel like that's a non-factor?
No, I mean, okay, as a sports fan, let's talk about like right now you have in the NBA Finals OKC versus Indiana, right? Two small market teams that don't necessarily have a national appeal. Guess what? Those tickets are more manageable. Are they still finals prices? Yes. But if it was the Lakers versus the Knicks in the finals, guess what? Those tickets are going to be more, right? There's a dynamic pricing element. And TKO WWE isn't doing that. But what's interesting is TKO does this with UFC. Like, depending on who's on a card, like those prices vary. But it seems like WWE is just trending one way because they're so focused on the numbers more than in, and it's like you don't need that. Like there's TV deals where you're making so much money. I think you guys talked about this on one of the last ones. It's like the money's being made on these TV deals. It's not being made on the gate. So why am I going to pay, to go pay $300-400 to sit up in the upper deck when I can sit on my couch at home and get a perfect view, and it not cost an arm and a leg, and plus like you
Right.
said in yours with like food, hotel, all that stuff. Like it's like the reason that they're going to keep doing it is because they're still getting that TV money, and so they don't have any worry about the bottom falling out, which is unfortunate.
That, well, I think not only that, but there's also that we've heard this before about people that you care about, right? So if you care about somebody, then the best way to get them to be involved is give them the reaction, right? Karrion Cross is a great example of that right now. Everything he's doing has been phenomenal recently, and people make sure to cheer for him and get loud when they see him on their TV screen. But they've also said you want somebody to go away, booing them isn't the answer because that's a reaction. You want them to go away, you sit on your hands and you don't say anything. I think the same rule applies to when you're talking about pricing. Stop buying shit. Stop showing up to these shows. Quit paying these prices that they're jacking up. And as long as people keep coming, then they know, well, it's still there. You're not pricing enough people out because people are still making the trip. People are still buying the merch. People are still wanting to buy the tickets to be there. So I don't think that there's, like you said, the TV money is always going to be there. So that's not going to be a factor. But I also think that as long as you have at least a number of people that'll fill up the building at that town, they'll keep doing it. So I don't see the prices coming down. I don't see anything changing much. So unfortunately, it is becoming more and more so much of a business of, oh, well, it's about dollars and this guy got trimmed or this girl got trimmed or this is coming on. The Miz was another one who they thought, like, oh, he's next because he eliminated WWE from all of his bio info on social media. So, and I mean, that guy is the third longest tenured guy behind Orton and Cena. If they clip that guy and guys like Truth, what does that mean to anybody then at that point?
Look,
So,
and if they wanted to come out and say, look, we need to get younger as a roster. All of our current stars are trending upward. They're in their 40s or
right,
later. Totally get that. But at the same time, it really feels like they're just narrowing the focus of the roster to that top heavy area. And they're not bringing on that new talent and pushing new talent. They are more with the women's division, but definitely not with the men's division. Like, who's coming up that's getting a big push right now outside of maybe Penta? But Penta's still been wrestling for a long time, so you're not necessarily getting a ton younger. Like a guy like Karrion Cross not getting any, play
any
in
younger, right?
spite of the push for him. So it doesn't make sense that they're not, like, if you wanted to tell me, hey, we got to get younger. Because again, I look at it like a sports team. You're like, hey, our team's aging out. We need to start getting younger, and we're going to make some cuts of, some fan favorites, some beloved players or whatever. But this is the goal. I can get on board with that. But
Right.
when you're not doing that, and it's like, well, I'm going to save a half a mil by cutting this guy. in the scope of the numbers they're doing, it just comes off very disingenuous.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, let's get to the recap of SmackDown and Raw. The recap stuff that we're going to hit right here doesn't necessarily all involve, the majority of it will be things that are non related to Money in the Bank. And then when we get to our predictions, we'll go over the things we've been seeing the last week or so in the build to these four matches that they currently have listed. For SmackDown, as we mentioned, R-Truth and JC Mateo had an interaction. They wind up fighting. JC Mateo, aka Jeff Cobb, winds up picking up the win. We would see Javon Evans from NXT and Ethan Page get a look on SmackDown and continue their fight on SmackDown as they were rivals on NXT. Jacob Fatu would miss qualifying for the Money in the Bank ladder match and continues to have issues with Solo. So Solo is in the match, Jacob's not, and now you're seeing a little bit of a discrepancy that's getting a little deeper here. And then we would see a little bit at the end, we would see Jay and Cody and Logan and John in their promo segment. Obviously, we talked about that being what seems to be R-Truth's final appearance in WWE. For one thing, did you catch Javon Evans and Ethan Page making the run in and make a connection to who those guys were?
I did not.
So that Javon Evans has been doing some good work in NXT. Ethan Page is another guy who's been working hard. He's their North American champion as he just beat Ricky Saints, formerly Ricky Starks, for the North American title. So those guys getting a look on SmackDown, it's a good feeler. And I like that mix-up for SmackDown. It gives it an opportunity to kind of see somebody you didn't expect, and it gives those guys a taste of what it's like on the main roster. So good for those guys, a fun, different look. How do you feel about how they've slow played or slow burned the Fatu Solo back and forth, and now where they're at with it? Do you think that they need to kind of either fish or cut bait, or do you like that it's been this slow kind of he doesn't like him, and eventually we're going to have that moment?
I mean, the slow burn works to a point, and then it needs a payoff. I know we've talked about this with other aspects before. It's like they missed the boat. Like whatever happened to A-Town Down Under splitting and all that. Like they
Right.
teased that for so long, and that was actually like interesting for a little bit, and then they missed the boat. With this, I think it's gonna come to a head. We'll talk about it more later, but I think it's gonna start to boil over at Money in the Bank, and then we'll probably see it paid off in the following PLE. I think it's what, Clash or something like that. No, it's the Night of Champions, right?
Yeah, in Saudi.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna like pay off there. But I mean, honestly, I want to see Solo stop wrestling and just be a manager. He is freaking hilarious, just like not wrestling in the suit and all that. Like,
Right.
just let him be
Did
that
you
guy.
did you see him try, like he literally had to fight breaking when Truth and him were having the back and forth about who Jeff Cobb was, that he was like, "That's your husky son," and you could see him like, don't look, don't look, don't look.
Yeah,
That
no, I mean, but even the work that Solo does, like in the like backstage segments and stuff like that, he's freaking hilarious. Like I wish I'd seen more of that and less of, this brooding, or like he's not a mastermind, just let him kind of be a funny
yeah.
guy. Like
He
they
he
gotta
came
stop pushing him.
across. I think. I mean, and I stand by what you and I said, that the order of things mattered and the way that they introduced Jacob and shit. But the idea that like
Fuck you, Damien.
uh, the idea that he didn't come across as a mastermind, he didn't come across as the mob boss that got brave and took over and took out, the Don. He was the guy that they were like, well, that guy's out, so now I'm in. And I'm just making myself that guy because this territory is not being ran by anybody because the boss isn't away, so I'm going to say that I'm the boss until the boss gets back. And it came across very light. It came across very weak at times, especially when he was still finding his footing in promos. And then Jacob shows up, and you're like, that's the guy that should be taking over. That's the guy that should be the guy that's in charge, because when the boss comes back, who's going to say, get out of my chair, that's my desk? You going to tell that guy to get out of the chair? It's like, no, you know damn well that's not what's going to happen if it's Jacob. But Solo didn't come across as that, and I think he's starting to find himself a little bit more. each week without the bloodline stuff, without that, and he can play off of Jeff Cobb being the straight guy, and he can kind of play off of Jacob and his craziness and his thug, where he can kind of make fun of it and kind of remind him that, like, hey, listen, I got backup, I got this guy right here and whatnot. So I do like what he's been doing as far as how that's built each week. I agree. Let him be more of a humanized person instead of trying to be a guy who's in charge and running the show. You're not that guy. Stop it. When it comes to SmackDown and the women's division, how do you like have over the last few weeks how they've booked the women's division, and everything from Tiffy and Nia Jax having a return match to how the lineup that they have for the women's match coming up, and that whole lineup from SmackDown? You got Alexa Bliss, you have Naomi, you have Julia now, who's officially on SmackDown. For those three being in the match for those women, did you like that those were the three that were chosen for the Money in the Bank match from SmackDown, at least?
Yeah, I mean, I love the Naomi win. I think she's done some great character work. She's a good heel. Um, Alexa Bliss, it's a wait and see for me because they just haven't done much with her other than put her in these events like they did with Elimination Chamber, and then she disappeared. So I'm kind of more so seeing what happens with her moving beyond Money in the Bank.
Right.
And then, who's the third one?
Julia.
Julia. Still new to me as that casual fan. Like I said, I haven't watched much in the last couple weeks, unfortunately, other than some cliff notes and stuff. But I like the work that she does in the ring. I think that she's going to be a good addition to that match. But it's like, okay, so there's too many women on that roster that I feel like they don't know what they're doing yet. And we talked about this with creative. There's just like too many stagnant storylines. Like for a 3-hour show, how are you not getting enough traction and movement with secondary storylines and stuff?
Right.
You get a Charlotte Flair tease a little bit here, and then she hasn't done anything since WrestleMania, really.
Right.
And there's people like that. I just don't understand what we're doing from that aspect. But as far as Money in the Bank, I think Naomi, Alexa Bliss, and Julia are about the best they could have done for that match. Nobody wanted to see Nia try and climb a ladder.
Right. Yeah.
It's not her thing. Jade doesn't need it, I don't think.
Yeah.
She's not the type who needs a briefcase or anything for a title shot, like not the way that they're building her. And obviously Bianca's hurt. So
Yeah, fingers still splinted on Friday.
right. So, I actually like where they're going with this because you can do a lot of interesting things with storylines with those three.
I really liked the original Julia Stephanie Vaucour tag team and what they were doing with them. And then when they got to Raw, and then they had Roxanne Perez involved, and how that kind of came together and all this stuff, like with Julia on Raw, I mean, because Vaucour just debuted officially for Raw this week, but they had her and Stephanie, teaming on NXT and then head to head in a title versus title match. And then they bring Julia and Roxy together, and I thought, oh man, this is kind of fun. This is different. And then they moved her over to SmackDown, and I thought that's a good shot in the arm for SmackDown because getting Vaucour and Roxanne Perez was strong enough. And the rumor is, and we haven't had confirmation yet, but the rumor is that Jordan Grace is the other one that's headed to SmackDown to match the numbers. Do you think, excuse me, do you think that they do a better job, whether that's through NXT in general or the main roster, that they do a better job of building women than they are men as far as top people right now? Because NXT's women's roster has been fucking stacked. And by having Roxanne, having Julia and Stephanie move on, that's now going to open the door for some other people, a la JC Jane, rather, who just started as the NXT Women's Champion, being the one that shocked the world by defeating Stephanie Vaucour. And then this week was the big surprise debut of Mariah May, who they would not say her name, so I assume she's getting a new one. But that's a big deal, that she's in NXT. And I feel like they just keep, whether it's Jordan Grace, whether it's Mariah May, whether it's the homegrown built Roxanne Perez, or you're bringing in a Julia or a Stephanie, and they still have Zyra, and that's another one that's still been out there. So I feel like they have a good idea of how to make stars out of the women. It's just a matter of how creative handles them when they get there. And I like the Julia like I said, shot in the arm for SmackDown. They need that. They need a little extra as far as a younger person that can come in with, momentum and some stardom of her own. That doesn't need to mooch off of, oh, this person looks a lot like fill in the blank of the wrestler that's already there. So I like that, they've been using Jade well. I think they haven't overexposed her. They haven't tried to make her do too much. Now you have Julia who's on the rise, and you already have Tiffany who's young and has the potential to be a top star for years to come. Hopefully you have vets like Charlotte. You have some other people in there like a Naomi, like a Nia that can get in there and work with those young people and continue to elevate them and have some knockout, matches along the way. For the promo segment at the end of Logan and John and Cody and Jay, you're already shaking your head. What did you not like about it?
For one, it was way too long.
Yeah.
It was way too long. It did not need to be the last 15 minutes of SmackDown. I get I'm tired of the John Cena angle. I'm tired of his heel run. It hasn't worked for me. It's not interesting. It's not must-see TV for me, honestly. The Saturday night's main event, I was like, this did nothing for me. It didn't move the needle at all. There was no, even his run-in at the end and stuff like that. It's not doing it for me. I think they failed this heel turn in so many ways. And Logan Paul's, he's got to find some more range with his promo skills and be able to be something more than just, oh, I'm famous and you're not, ha ha ha, blah blah blah. I'm rich and you're not, ha. It's so wooden and one dimensional that there's no depth to his character. I know you and Damian talk about this all the time. There's what kind of heat are you getting? And it's he's still getting a lot of go away heat. And I get he's so good in the ring. He's got so much natural talent, and in the ring he's really upper tier, I would argue. Watching, but man, he just doesn't make me interested in anything. And I'm sorry, Jay's not great on the mic either. So really, you just have Cena versus Rhodes again on the mic, and I feel like they both have the governor on a little bit. They're being held back from truly just going all in their promos.
Right.
No holds barred, which I would like to see because I think that they could do really well in that scenario. But yeah, I mean, it just doesn't do much for me.
I agree. I thought the segment was way too long. I didn't like just what we've talked about before. Logan goes back to the same thing. They didn't play into him enough as the YouTuber. He should have been bringing up, I got this many followers from YouTube. Now I'm conquering this world because all these people can't be what I am. It was just, oh, you guys just don't like me a lot like John. I'm like John because you guys don't like me because if I walked on water, you say that it's because I can't swim. That's the best you got? And he's pandering to the crowd. He wasn't talking to Jay and Cody. He was talking to the crowd back and forth. And it's we don't come there to see people argue with the crowd or talk about their disdain for the crowd to them for 4 months in a row. Talk about the guy you're fighting. Talk about what you're doing. Talk about what you're going to do to them or what you're not going to allow them to do to you. Those things are what people pay attention to. And, of course, like you said, Jay's not great on the mic either, so it was essentially Cody and John. And, of course, Cody's been gone, and now, they set this moment up, and they let Cody get the line in about, where you guys going? You're going to go polish his Peacemaker, which got the crowd up. And then they go to the physicality, and who gets left? Logan gets left on, the setup of the Cody Cutter and the 1D that the Usos used to do. Jey Uso's got no business in this match with a title match on Monday. He goes and beats Logan, and then he's got to go deal with Gunther. There's no reason for this. You can argue that the Logan bit makes sense of Cena saying he wants to ruin wrestling. I can get behind that. That's viable to get Logan involved. I can see that. But to have the world's heavyweight champion involved just to say, look, Jay gets to rub shoulders with these guys now, And so this will help him, and it makes Logan look good. Logan's only working with top guys. Show me a match where Logan's not working with top guys for more than a one-off. Let me see Logan and Chad Gable. A guy who could be in the upper tier but is undersized and can work his ass off. Let's see what Logan looks like against that. Show me Logan against somebody like an Austin Theory. Let me see what that looks like. But they ain't doing that. Logan needs to be up here. Logan needs to work with these guys. Let me see what he's got when he doesn't get to work with those guys every fucking week. And let those guys help him and walk him through things. It was stated, I found this out after Saturday night's main event, Jay flew to Puerto Rico to rehearse the match with him. You can't talk to him and say, hey, this is what we're going to do out there, blah, 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 blah. And then the rest of it we'll figure out as we go. He's got to have his matches rehearsed. And don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that that's not something that's become more normal than it fucking should be. But what I am saying is you're dragging every single top guy that he's working with and going, hey, come here and rehearse this. Hey, come here and rehearse this. We got to make sure that he looks good. We got to make sure that he looks like he belongs. Well, he's clearly got athleticism. He's clearly got those things. But really? He has to have his hand held that fucking much? And then for them to be like, all right, we got him. Like, he's there. They'll like that, or they'll boo that, or whatever. He had no business in this match to say, oh, well, it's because it was me and Jay before. No, it should have just Cena went and got him and said, hey, I saw what happened with Jay, so let's get you back on track and get you back up there because I would like to see you be the world's heavyweight champion because that would piss everybody off. But they don't do that. They let Jay get involved, even though he's got a title match with Gunther. And I want to point this out. Maybe you've seen this. Every single match that Cena's had since he's turned, he's wound up being the guy that gets laid out or his team is getting laid out but going into the match beforehand.
Yep.
And do you know that whole trope about how that looks and what that does?
Yeah, like it sets you up for, that if you're the one who's getting laid out every time, you're going to get your get back at the actual match.
Yep, exactly. So if that's what that's going to be, I mean, you're kind of giving away who's winning. Because every time he's been laid out, you can't tell me that his matches have been good where people aren't paying attention. People are watching how bad this is and going, Jesus, another one? And then they watch him get laid out and they go, wait, he got laid out? Okay. They're going to do this again.
It's like, he's got this set number of dates.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I see this subpar, shitty like segment with Cena, and it's like, that counts. Check that one off. Check that one off. And like he did the counter one time. And it's like, yeah, you're wasting 75% of his appearances on 5-minute segments where he does nothing but talk, get hit with one move, lays there for 2 minutes, and then rolls out of the ring and walks away. It's the same thing over and over. It's like it's a waste of this whole. It's the equivalent of like, let's say, if LeBron finally goes to retire and he's like, well, I'm going to be in all these cities. I'm going to play 5 minutes of the game, check the box, walk out, and I'm going to be in the locker room in an ice bath before halftime.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's really what it is. And it's like no fan has to feel like they're getting what they want just because Cena's in the building. Who gives a shit? Like, you're not getting anything of substance from it.
I said this, right? Like, I asked the question to Damien and to you at one point. Was WWE willing to piss away an entire year of main event quality matches for what could have been him and somebody else or other people involved and like him work his way into that? And I believe we found the answer to that the answer is yes. They have a bidding war going on for his last match. The check number is $1.5 million. You sign that check over, you get John Cena's last match.
This is just weird. This sounds like a pretty low number.
Well, considering it's a Saturday night's main event.
Yeah.
That's why.
Fair.
So, to me, I asked the question. I think it's true. They're willing to piss this away. I don't see the idea behind this at all of where this goes well and how this gets better. You fumble fuck this thing. The Rock's been involved. He fumble fucked this whole thing. Cena hasn't been good. He hasn't been worth it. Dude, we're getting to a point where when you see that match go on, you can just walk around, go take a piss, go get something to drink, whatever, refill your popcorn or grab a sandwich, and just wait till the finish till the bullshit happens at the end. Because the rest of the match ain't really worth watching at this point.
We
And
talked
that's sad to
earlier,
say.
we were talking earlier about, the financial aspects and things like that. I think WWE is like wanting the casual fan because here's the problem is you're right, people will still pay to go see Cena because people want to be a part of an event. If something's an event, they want to be a part of it. Is it pissing off the hardcore fans? Absolutely. But the hardcore fans ultimately are still going to watch.
Yeah.
You're not going to turn your back on WWE altogether. You might get pissed off and disappointed with stretches and maybe take a week off, but ultimately you're still a diehard fan and you're still going to follow the product and, things like that. So they know that you're not going to stop watching. You're probably not going to stop buying merch and things like that. But what they get is all these people because of social media and things who want to be a part of the event of whatever it is, whether it's like, oh, Cena was here. I was there when Cena was here. I was there
Right.
when this happened. Because they want to be able to post it on their Instagram or whatever and talk about it. And because that's what, people value more than money in a lot of ways is that clout, that ability to say, I was a part of this special thing.
Right. The status of it. Yep.
So it doesn't matter if John Cena has a shitty match and they charge an arm and a leg because people still want to be a part of Cena's final tour.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, let's get to Raw so we can get to our predictions here after. Raw's recap, Sammy and Punk open the show with a promo. Sammy talks to Punk about stopping Seth is a must. You don't want to see what happens if he gets power. And that he tells him he's got to qualify for Money in the Bank in the match at the end of the night, which would be the main event, Punk, AJ, and El Grande. Sammy and Cross would have a backstage segment where Cross tells Sammy, I know you're not a good guy. You need to be a bad guy. You could have been champion 10 times over if you just would have done what you needed to do. Again, another big reaction for Cross. He's really, really getting the love. I hope they let him have more and more screen time and actually getting him into something meaningful. Uh, Roxanne Perez helps Finn and JD beat the War Raiders. So again, Roxanne Perez looks good as Finn wants her in the Judgment Day, and apparently there's room now that Carlito's gone. Kairi Sane beats Raquel with help from Io Sky as she evened out the odds, getting rid of Liv Morgan. And in the main event, in the triple threat match of AJ Styles, CM Punk, and El Grande, Seth winds up getting involved, Braun Breaker winds up getting involved, and El Grande, of all people, picks up the win and moves on to the ladder match. And AJ was the one that took the pin. And then we see the moment of, Cena, or excuse me, not Cena, but Punk and Rollins in this, square off swing in for the fences and going after each other again. I believe this match is going to be the main event of at least night one, I would imagine, of SummerSlam is where they're headed with these two. I think that they should have been in the match together because they could have fucked each other out of it without having it to be interference. But what are you going to do? They found a way to get around it, and El Grande gets in the ladder match. We were just talking off air about Chad Gable having to do double duty between Worlds Collide and the Money in the Bank ladder match. He's going to be, hurting for sure. What do you think of Raw? And what did you think of the way that they set up Seth interference and costing Punk and where we seem to be that these two are destined to continue fighting for the foreseeable future?
Raw was okay. It wasn't the greatest, but it wasn't bad. It was, it advanced some storylines. I'm gonna sound like Damien right now. It advanced storylines, and I'm not mad at it, but um, yeah, I mean, I think with the Seth and Punk thing, I know there's rumor that Roman could appear at Money in the Bank, and I think that he's going to get involved with this at some point, and that's going to be that part of that bridging to SummerSlam. You can still end up with Punk and Rollins at SummerSlam, but Roman's going to come back and do something to that point. So with Punk out of the match, rather than those two taking each other out, you could get a Roman run in, or Punk runs in and Breaker stops him, and Roman runs in or something to take Seth out of that Money in the Bank aspect and still kind of push that storyline. So it made sense to me. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm on board. Karrion Kross needs more screen time. He needs to actually be able to get in the ring a little bit. And then the pop he would get is huge. It's just, there's always that old adage that WWE doesn't like guys who, get over on their own. So I'm hoping that they'll, we talk about how they're all about dollars and cents. This guy's going to make you money. Come on.
Right?
Get out there. It shouldn't matter how he got there.
No, I agree. I agree for sure. Well, let's get to our picks here for the Money in the Bank predictions. I'm going to take this down so I can write down your predictions. Damian wasn't able to make it tonight, as we mentioned, but he did text in his picks for tonight's show. So I'll go ahead and read those as we go as well. The match card, as currently listed, as we said, we expect it to be a 5-match card, as everything else has been. But currently they only have 4, and we'll go in no particular order. The first one is Becky versus Lyra for the Women's Intercontinental Championship. If Becky wins, Lyra has to shake her hand. If Becky loses, she can no longer challenge for the Intercontinental Women's Championship. I'm going to go with Lyra here. I feel like they've given her adequate time in promos. They've given her time to be the person that stands up and looks strong. And I get, like, from the perspective of Becky winning, it makes her Triple Crown. She's one of the vets to win that thing for the first time. But I don't think it does any favors for Becky to win. I think it does more for Lyra to pick up a clean victory on Becky for the championship, and she can continue to move on and do bigger things, and Becky can go a different direction, especially now that you have more talent like a Roxanne Perez, like a Stephanie Valcour on Raw, and that you're able to work with them now. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Lyra. Damian also picked Lyra for this match. Who do you have? And what have you thought of the build with these two?
I think it's a clean sweep. I'm picking Lyra, but I'm picking not a clean finish
Oh, okay.
because she already got that clean finish at WrestleMania, where she did beat her without any interference, even though it was on a roll up. But I think what you're going to see is like Bailey come back. I'm predicting a Bailey comeback, and
Okay.
that's going to push a Bailey and Becky storyline, especially with the Women's Evolution PLE coming.
Oh, that's true. That's a good
Yeah.
call.
I think that's the route that's going to go. And like you said, I 100% agree. There's so much upcoming talent in the women's division over there that like Lyra can have plenty of good programs, whether it's a Roxanne or a Stephanie Valcour or anybody else. So yeah, I got Lyra winning this, but I think Becky tries to cheat maybe, and Bailey stops her. Maybe doesn't full on take her out, but like prevents her from being able to cheat in some way or another to beat Lyra, and it'll pivot towards that storyline.
Okay. The second match, the tag match, Cody and Jay versus Logan and John. We said it. They laid out Logan and John as a tag team, and these two, it's going to continue. Jay's going to go on to something different with Gunther, but Cody's got to have something to keep fighting with, and I don't see it being Logan. I see there being some. I could even see, as they had teased a little bit, of Logan and John having some problems, but I just don't see them losing to Cody and Jay. And a way to keep Cody away from John for a little longer is that John and Logan win, but then there's after the match, John takes Logan out or Logan goes after John, and now you have that back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and go Logan and John. Damian also went Logan and John. Who do you have?
All right, I'm going opposite.
Oh, okay.
I think this is a scenario where you can have Cena take a pin and it not diminish him as a champion because the titles aren't on the line. You're facing off against the former champion and current world heavyweight champion. Cena could take a pin here, and it would finally, like, throw a wrench in that cycle that we're seeing of him taking that, eating it in the week before and then getting the win eventually.
Well, that's what we thought with R-Truth, right? At Saturday night's main event, we're like, this is the perfect opportunity. It's non-title. People go nuts for that finish, and they didn't do that at all.
Right, but I think Cody needs to. I think that they're going to push. I feel like Cody and Cena at SummerSlam is more likely, and so for that timeline, I think giving Cody a one up, even in a tag match, you
Is
know,
important.
it gives him a little bit of leverage and momentum going into that, building into that through the summer. So, and I don't think it hurts Cena to lose here because maybe, like you saw him kind of have that hesitation with Logan, like that brewing trouble. Maybe something happens there where Cena gets caught off guard because he's having an issue with Logan and, losing that way. So, I'll go against the grain here and take Cody pinning Cena.
Okay. Then we got the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. We got Rhea Ripley, Alexa Bliss, Roxanne Perez, Naomi, Julia, and Stephanie Vacour. Damien, of course, went with his new favorite female wrestler. Stephanie Vacour is his pick. Who do you have in this one?
This is tough.
It is.
I know who I want to see win it because I
Okay.
think it would be cool with the. I think it would be cool if Roxanne won it for the
Okay.
dynamics with the Judgment Day and stuff. But do you really want to have the
Right.
Judgment Day holding a Money in the Bank again? Um, I'm gonna say Naomi.
Oh,
I
okay.
like Naomi winning this, and with the character work she's doing, the Money in the Bank is such a heel thing anyway. And I think she's one of the top female heels right now, and I think that she could do a lot with it. I know people are going, "Oh, but there's the merch, Mommy in the Bank, and blah blah blah." Rhea
Yeah.
doesn't need it. It's the same thing I was saying about Jade earlier. I don't think
Right.
it doesn't add to Rhea's legacy in any way to be a Money in the Bank winner.
Right.
Unless you're going to scrap it somehow and go a different direction like they did with Drew last year. But yeah, so I'm going to say Naomi wins.
Okay. I had a hard time with this one because obviously Naomi fits the bill like you mentioned. You have Julia, going to be fun for the match, but still too new. Stephanie, I could see people going, put a rocket on her, let's go. But I don't think she's established enough with the main roster on Raw yet to have that opportunity present itself, especially against somebody like an EO right now, and where that seems to be headed with a live confrontation. Um, the Roxanne Perez thing, I get as far as the Judgment Day dynamic. Alexa Bliss, there's a lot of people that think she's winning, and she's had some interactions with Tiffany about she needs to be the one that's worried about. We've seen, and been one of the big proponents of saying that Rhea doesn't need a championship. She doesn't need a gimmick like the Money in the Bank ladder match because she's a big enough star without all that. I do agree with that, but the way that they had her shockingly lose, they wind up letting Io win at WrestleMania. I feel like it's that cycle of she's been kind of caught somewhere in between, and the storytelling with Liv went way too long. As we mentioned, it got stale before it got taken care of at one point. And then they do this Io thing where everybody was like, nobody really wants Io there. They love the match, right? And us included, but it should have been her and Bianca, and we should have saw that and where that goes. But Bianca's back on SmackDown, so that's not happening. I think my pick's going to be Rhea. That Mommy in the Bank makes a lot of sense. She's on her own now. It gives her that opportunity that she can wait a while. You can tease it at any time that she's waiting around to pick her spot. Io's her friend. Is she going to do it to her? Can she do it down the road to somebody else? There's a lot of different ways you can go with that. So my pick's going to be Rhea for this. She doesn't need it, but I think they're going to do it because of the possibilities that it opens up for her as somebody that you have to remind, like, she's always in the background. If you don't like a champion, hey, let's let Rhea cash in and fucking let her take the title off of them real quick or
The
something like
issue
that.
is, right, like with Money in the Bank, WWE's got to think, who do we want to be champion at WrestleMania 43?
Right. 40.
43 is next year, right? 42, sorry,
Yeah.
42. Yeah, like that's what's got to come into play with this, right? Because whoever cashes in, you don't want them to cash in and only have it for a short period of time. They'll probably
That's true.
I know Triple H hates the Money in the Bank thing apparently,
Yeah.
but so maybe he wastes it.
There
But
was there was some people saying that like, oh, this is setting up because there's no title match and the tag both champions are in the tag match, that this is going to set up a cash in same night. But you're not going to take the title off of Cena, like we know that. And Jay's got the match on Monday night with Gunther that they've been building up. So I don't see a same night cash in coming from the men's thing. The women's, neither one of the women are on the show. So Io's not on the show. Tiffany's not on the show. There's not going to be a cash in. It doesn't seem like on there. For the men, I thought they did a rough job compared to the women. Like you're looking at heavy hitters in Rhea, Bliss, and then Naomi's a vet who is, like you said, her niche or niche, depending on how you say it. And then you got the up and comers in Perez, Julia, and Valcour, right? But on the men's side of the thing, and if you look at the women's, you can name any of them and give a reason for them to win, really. The men is not like that. Realistically, out of the names that I'm about to list, you're going to get two and maybe a third out of those that are realistic winners. We have Penta, Seth, Andrade, El Grande, LA Knight, and Solo. In my opinion, LA Knight, Seth are the definite possibilities, and Solo's the maybe. El Grande's not winning it. Penta's not winning it. Like, it doesn't make sense. Andrade's not winning it. So I don't think they did a good enough job in the believability of the guys in the match. It's going to be a good match. Penta's great in ladder matches. I've seen it before. Andrade, we saw last year's Money in the Bank. He was one of the MVPs of that match, along with Carmelo and Chad Gable, who have been proven in these other matches. So LA Knight, we'll see what he does, but I feel like he's one of the other guys that people are like, he's got to win it because it's either give him a world title run or like opportunity at least, or move on from him and be done with it because the United States title runs haven't been shit. So in my mind, there's only two, maybe three guys that go. And I feel like the only one that makes sense story wise would be Seth. But if you're going to have interference of Punk or possible Roman return, like you mentioned, then to me, I'm going to go ahead and take LA Knight because that's the only one that Seth can keep going without it and not need it. And him and Punk, especially after their standoff and swinging on each other on Monday, they can definitely continue that and keep that going. So I'm going to go LA Knight. Damian chose Seth for his pick. Who's your pick?
okay, so thinking about this, I agree with what you're saying about like so many of these guys are not going to put it on. My problem with LA Knight is he is on SmackDown. You're not going to have him cash in on Cena. You're probably not going to have him cash in on a Cody, right?
True.
And
True.
unless he goes full heel, but then still you would have to have a title change before he cashes in,
Right.
And I don't
Well,
think
I think that also depends on how long you want him to hold it or if you want him to be successful in the cash in.
right. And so I don't. Fans would be pissed if you finally gave LA Knight the briefcase and he
And he fails.
kills it. Like I'm sorry, but for a lot of guys, you fail on a cash in.
That could be a wrap.
Yeah, like when you don't have the established championship pedigree, that's like a career killer right there. And so like where Drew failing on the cash in has the pedigree still.
Yeah.
He had that pedigree. He was a multiple time champion, stuff like that. LA Knight, he's a 2-time US champion, that's it. So you have him fail, he's no more than a mid Carter for the rest of his career. And you're gonna see that takedown. Solo, they've tried to push him in the main event. It didn't work. He's not gonna win it. Um, Andrade, again, that's another one. He's a mid card guy. He's a mid card guy. El Grande is just there to have luchador beef with Penta. Penta, I could see you maybe doing it with, but he's so over. And I know I talked about a run in and stuff like that, but man, I feel like it's going to be Seth. Because here's my thought is if Punk and or Roman try to run in and ruin it, you can somehow, with the way that faction is at Night of Champions or something else, you can have a Braun and Bronson versus Roman Punk type of match. You
Right.
want to tag there with Seth holding the briefcase and just being like the mastermind behind it all.
Yeah.
So like the only one that makes logical sense to me is Seth.
Fair enough. Well, there you have it. Those are our predictions, the three of us. We will see. We all have different answers, and multi people matches makes it easier for us to find a winner one way or another. Um, as we start to wrap things up here, um, I want to mention, for one thing, first time ever with us being on YouTube, and first time ever doing it with the podcast, I will be doing a live reaction show right after Money in the Bank. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to get on YouTube. We're going to go live, and I'm going to give my initial reactions and thoughts straight away, right then, right there. Um, Damien and David are more than welcome to make run-ins, but there's no promises. This is only a me thing to do for the first time. We wanted to see how this is going to go, what kind of reaction we get, if we get enough eyes on the whole thing, and how this goes, and do something different and do something fun. So I'm going to come out here right after Money in the Bank and go ahead and get on and give a live reaction, probably during like their presser. It'll probably be the time frame that'll happen. So I'll be doing that. Uh, I want to say, we mentioned while you were gone, we didn't get into detail, obviously, for obvious reasons of what has been going on the last couple of weeks. But I will say that on behalf of me and Damien, it's good to have you back and back on the show and back on your regular schedule. As we know, you get busy again now that you've taken another position of extracurriculars that we're very, very happy and proud to say that you got and that you're handling. So proud to have you back and glad that you're staying busy with the other things. Appreciate you making the time. It's never lost on me how this takes time. We have, all of us have kids. We all have family people that are around and that we have to run to, and at the drop of a hat, case in point tonight, hey, last minute, 20 minutes before we're supposed to hit record, hey, can't make it, guys. Some shit came up. So things happen like this all the time, and trying to get all three of us in the same room of, podcasting and, in front of our computers and cameras and microphones, it's a juggling act for sure. So I always appreciate the time that you and Damien make, and like I said, I speak for both of us when we say we're glad to have you back and being able to be here, especially for prediction week, right? That's the
Yeah.
most important one. If you only show up once a month, it's got to be prediction week, right?
And if I
So
win at post prediction.
that's, that's right. If he wins, there's a follow up. He shows up on the review and the fallout and wants to make sure that everybody knows he won. That's for sure. Well, as we get out of here, man, what do you have to tell the people on the way out?
I missed you guys. I'm happy to be back, and I swear I didn't try and take 3 weeks off in a row on purpose.
It was,
Sorry.
and to be fair, we were having conversations about him being back before we knew that he was going to be gone that long. It wasn't intentional. He's telling the truth.
But yeah, so that's it.
We'll see you guys Sunday or what is it? Sunday, Saturday, Saturday, right?
Saturday.
Saturday. I'll see you guys Saturday after the show. Live reaction. Damien and David. Hopefully, can we get a commitment for the fallout, or is it only if you win the predictions?
No, I think I actually have plans that night already.
No shit. All right. Well, Damien and I will be back for the fallout and full on review, but I will be back for live reactions. We'll see you guys next time on another episode of the Grab a Hole podcast.